Understanding Thursday, a Tuesday's Life Books Inspiration. Series 1, Book 2 of 9. Written between November 14th, 2001 to September 15th, 2003. Dedications. For Jonah Matranga from One Line Drawing, for being a hell of a great guy. For Jeff Rickley from Thursday, one of the greatest poet-lyricists since Ian Curtis. For Chris Rowe from the Ataris, for buying me a Jack and Coke, sending me a Christmas card, and making Elliot birthdays incredible. For Andrew McMahon from Something Corporate, for writing Globes and Maps, Me and the Moon, and Constantine, who majored in sweet-ass rock with an emphasis in setlist creation. For Matt Embry from the RX Bandits, for taking the time to speak to those who will listen, making statements without preaching and not talking down to an audience. For Christopher Ender Carapa from Dashboard Confessional, for paving the way for us guys who don't play sports or drive fast cars and aren't afraid of their emotions. For Timothy Lee Bonnet Jr., the author of The Tale of Digby, for being a great confidant and a major influence on me. You have taught me a lot. You surprise me every day. For the greats who inspired me, Hubert Selby Jr., Henry Rollins, Jim Carroll, Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, William S. Burroughs, Ian Curtis, Chuck Palahniuk, Shel Silverstein, Stephen Chbosky, Robert Smith, and Jeffrey Eugenides. And to my friends, old and new, Kirk, Luke, Derek, Erilyn, Caroline, Eric, Amber, Elliot, KR, Ariana, Lonnie, Julie, Tucker, Roger, John, Mr. Flynn, Mr. Quint, Lance, Ainsley, Will, and Marilyn. Without you, I'd only have half a book. Hopefully the day will come where the past doesn't matter. And to Kelly, who's only comparable to the stars themselves. I'll make one editorial remark right here, but almost all those names, and any names you see listed that have an asterisk after the name, means that that is not the real name. So out of that last list, Eric, John, and Kelly are the only real names. Endorsements. Books. The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Diary. Choke. Survivor. The Basketball Diaries. Forced Entries. The Downtown Diaries. On the Road. The Catcher in the Rye. The Great Gatsby. Junkie. Requiem for a Dream. The Fall of America. Howl and Other Poems. The Boys on the Tracks. Devil's Knot. The True Story of the West Memphis Three. The Tale of Digby. Middlesex. The Virgin Suicides. The Room. Last Exit to Brooklyn. The Moon is Down. A Clockwork Orange. The Wanting Seed. Cry, the Beloved Country. Touching from a Distance. Lullaby. Black Coffee Blues. Life of Pi. Ishmael. The Sign and the Seal. Films. Day for Night. The 400 Blows. The Mosquito Coast. Magnolia. Requiem for a Dream. Halloween. Salò. The Hidden Fortress. The Crow. Leon the Professional. The Goonies. The Monster Squad. Marat Sade. Suspiria. Phenomena. Juliet of the Spirits. 8.5. Amarcord. Brazil. 12 Monkeys. Pi. Chasing Amy. Bands. Something Corporate. RX Bandits. One Line Drawing. The Ataris. Further Seems Forever. The Juliana Theory. Yellow Card. The All-American Rejects. Authority Zero. Sigaros. Dashboard Confessional. Steel Train. The Early November. Atreyu. Elliott Smith. Piebald. Thursday. Sparta. Jimmy Eat World. Finch. Ben Folds. The Get Up Kids. Autopilot Off. Stewart. Brand New. Good Charlotte. The Movie Life. Newfound Glory. Dreamer. Statistics. Code 7. Sugar Cult. Rufio. AFI. Phoenix TX. The Starting Line. The Used. 238. Fairweather. Anything But Joey. Joy Division. The Cure. Smashing Pumpkins. Radiohead. Sublime. Beethoven. John Coltrane. Miles Davis. Bone Thugs and Harmony. Snoop Dogg. Armor for Sleep. Abandoned Pools. Amberlin. Celebrity. Acceptance. Elliot. Coheed and Cambria. Mogwai, Explosions in the Sky. Introduction. I began this book of poetry very simply but scared. I wasn't sure where it would take me or if I would be able to fill another book. With Till the Streetlights Came On, I had no time frame, no real beginning and no real end. I had dozens and dozens of poems that I had written in different styles in various notebooks in myriad places. There was no true chronology or linear structure. I just took what I had and fit them in the best order I could come up with. It was November of 2001, and I had been carrying around the same little sketchbook turned book of poetry with no great output and no set schedule to write. So I figured it was time to start a new section of life. Just a month before, a 2-year-long relationship had ended, so it seemed to be the perfect time for new beginnings. I slapped all of the Till the Streetlights Came On pieces together and put them on the shelf. I then picked up a new sketchbook, turned it into a new book of poetry, and set off to see where it would lead. I said then that what I needed was an end. Just like a fortune cookie I would get later in life, which read, "Always begin with an end in mind." So I decided that once I filled this little black book with my poems in it, Pink Floyd reference, then this book will be done. So 300 blank pages were filled over the period of almost 2 years, and the result is what lies ahead of you. I've always considered myself an extremely stylized person, and by that I mean slightly neurotic. Everything I do must be done the same way. With Till the Streetlights Came On, every piece had to be complete. There were no fragments, and each poem had to have a title. With Understanding Thursday, I shattered that strict form as much as I honored it. Around the same time I began this book, I also began to name the pens I use. I've carried a pen in my pocket for many years, and I began to give each one a name and a life. I set myself rules of usage for my pens. I can only write in my book of poetry and my journals with my present pen, and once that pen ran out of ink, I would then retire it and move on to a new pen. I would buy these 3 packs of Papermate Flexi Grips that come with a purple, green, and gray pen, and that was the order I would use them. Purple first, because I hate purple, then green, and then gray. Through the course of this book, I have retired 19 pens. That is just about 1 pen per month. And in that time period, I only misplaced 1 pen and had to replace it with a clone. Those pens in order of usage are Bob, Betsy, Spike Schnizzle, Plum Crazy, Sprite, Muted Demon, Tripsy, Sublime, Broken Angel, Virulin, Exodus, KHBS WTG, Splurge, Digby, Outsider, Change, Flyboy, Dagger 2.0, and Constantine. So here I am, all crazed and neurotic, following these strange rituals and practices, yet I also blow apart many rules I set forth previously. In Understanding Thursday, I've broken away from always completing my pieces. There are many small fragments, and many of these are left untitled. They are only given distinction by the dates on which they were written. I also tried very hard to keep a tight schedule on a piece. Usually, I would not begin a new poem until ending the one I was currently working on. That too was not the case with this book. I would write a few lines one day and then return to it many months later. I always felt that this was wrong because poems should be written in the moment, and if you let them go unfinished for too long, then the poems change from its original theme. I found this was actually to my advantage and was quite surprised how well some of these pieces turned out. Another thing I must mention is that in the latter part of the book, you may find a few lines repeated from poems in the first half of the book. This did not happen too often, but I was afraid if I did not explain why, I would come under ridicule. Much like in my early works until the Streetlights Came On, I spent a lot of time with rhyme schemes and all of that junk. I would soon drop that altogether and eventually grow to despise rhyming poetry, but something in me slowly made me go back to that form. I began to write pieces with the mindset that they would be used as lyrics for songs, some of which have been put to music and function quite well. In writing some song lyrics, I began to reuse phrases I really liked from my writings. All poems that were initiated as song lyrics will be labeled song. This will tell you that they may contain lines stolen from other poems. And finally, the last thing I would like to talk about is the titles of my poems. I've always attempted to stay away from obvious titles. For example, in Till the Streetlights Came On, there's a piece called No Difference. We had to write this as an assignment. the assignment was to write about hands. And as you may have noticed, I did not call it hands, nor did I even use the word hands in the piece at all. In Understanding Thursday, I followed through on this as best as I could to have titles that were very obscure and for the most part had nothing to do with the poem. And if they did, it was some sort of hidden meaning. One thing I'm extremely proud of with this book is that unlike Till the Streetlights Came On, where every other title was stolen from another place, most of the titles here are of my own creation. I changed from stealing stuff from other people's works and began to use my own inside jokes and creations. Still, a few titles are homages to other works, and the only reason for that is because in some roundabout way they relate to the poem. And if you look closely enough, you may figure out how.